Now, I want to take your questions because you've got much better questions than I have answers for. So let me, yes, sir. I'm going to repeat the question, by the way. What does it make sense to create a system where nobody is going homeless for any reason? The answer is obviously yes. We should not have an economy, this economy, the richest economy in the world. We should not have so many homeless people. Why do we have so many homeless people? We should have facilities for them. We should have provision for them. And it's not just homeless people. Do you know today the chance that any family could find themselves homeless? Any family, middle-class families, professional families, if they got a medical bill that is a huge medical bill, if they lose their job, if they just fall back down on their luck, they could be homeless. You know how many people are losing their homes now? They are going to be homeless. This is not just a few people. This is potentially all of us. Yes, sir. Another question over here. Yes, ma'am. Okay, the question is, what kind of immunity are the states trying to work out with the administration to give the bank executives immunity from all of the stuff that they did? I don't know about that, but let me say what this movement should insist on, among other things, and that is accountability. We have a Wall Street that got totally out of control. Totally out of control. Greed knew no bounds. And then what happened? We all paid. We bailed them out. And then there was supposed to be financial regulation. Well, what did they do? The street, Wall Street, and the financial sector paid a huge amount of money for lobbyists and campaign finance so they could create loopholes in the financial regulation bill large enough for them to drive their Lamborghinis through. And so right now, instead of the simple rules we wanted, that is, for example, resurrect Glass-Steagall, separate commercial from investment banking, a simple rule. What did we get? We have 300 pages of a Volcker rule that is gobbledygook with all kinds of red tape and exemptions and loopholes that basically are going to allow the banks to do exactly what they did before. And you know what? Let's be candid. The banks are basically doing exactly what they did before. Yes, sir. I'm not sure you. The question is, why should you support the Democratic Party? And I was president. I was Secretary of Labor. No, I wasn't president when Bill Clinton was president. The only thing that you said wrong, I didn't support NAFTA. In fact, I said there should be no NAFTA unless there are strong labor and environmental side agreements. But let me just say, wait a minute. Beside that, why should we support the Democratic Party? I think we should support the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party becomes us. And you say, when will that happen? Again, if we are mobilized and organized, the Democratic Party will seek us out, will want us. The Democratic Party, what is a party? A party is a group of people. Our government should be, if it's a democracy, should be us. And so we need to have a Democratic Party that reflects us. That's what we need. That's what we should demand. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. The question is, your question is, I want to stop global warming. Say global warming? I can't hear it. Don't say climate change, say global warming. Okay, global warming. Yeah. Can I just say something? Because a lot of these are great questions, and I want to continue for a few minutes. I have a few minutes to take them. But I want to just say one thing, and it's very, very important, because many of you here, for completely accurate and important reasons, are concerned about the environment. Some of you here, for very important, noble, and critically important reasons, are concerned about jobs. Some of you here, for absolutely terribly important reasons, want to move to what I think we should have, and that is a single-payer system of health care. Some of you are here, and you are right about this. We need to have a military budget that is half or less of the current military budget. Now, wait a minute. But my point is, here's my point. And many of you have other issues. My point is that if we hang together, if we get out of our own issue silos for just a moment, and if we hang together, we have a chance of changing this country. If we get campaign finance reform and get money out of politics, we have a chance of getting our democracy back. So what you need to do is understand this movement is about all of us. It is about all of our issues. It is about everything we want and everything we need to take our country back. Yes.
How do we get our money back from the bailout, and how do we get some people in jail?
Okay, how do we get our money back from the bailout, and how do we get some people in jail for all of this? That goes back to the question of accountability. And let me just say, not a single top executive on Wall Street has been indicted or prosecuted for what has happened on Wall Street, and that is a scandal. But how do we make sure that that scandal is reversed and we get genuine accountability? How do we do that? For the same way we do everything else that I just listed. We demand it, we mobilize, we organize, we show energy, we link up with other occupiers around this country. We make this movement the strongest and most powerful people's movement in decades and decades, and we get everything that we want, that is necessary, and that is just. I have about a minute left. 5 minutes, okay. We got a chance for a couple more questions. Yes, ma'am. Wait a minute, I can't hear. Okay, here's the question. In my opinion, will Obama ever fulfill the promises he made to us in 2008? The answer is this. President Obama, if he is faced with a strong and articulate and powerful progressive movement, President Obama will go along. Yes, sir.
What can we do with all the dollars that we spent on the war? What would we be able to do with them?
Question is, what could we do with all the dollars that we are spending now on the military? $700 billion a year. Well, if we had $700 billion a year, or even if we have the military budget to $350 billion a year, we could educate all of our children, provide early childhood education. We could provide health care to all of our people. We could have a first-class infrastructure in this country, and we could provide jobs to people rebuilding America. Yes. I'm sorry. The problem we're talking about is not only a problem of Congress and Washington, or at least it's not only a problem of elected officials directly, it's also a problem, and let's be candid about this, it's a problem of our Supreme Court. And I'm going to name names. They start with Roberts, and Scalia, and Alito, and Clarence Thomas, and too often Justice Kennedy. And what they have decided, among other things that are heinous, that are ridiculous, that are grotesque, they've decided under the First Amendment that money is speech and corporations are people. I will believe that corporations are people when Georgia and Texas start executing corporations. Now look at, in order to get a majority of the Supreme Court back for America, reflecting the values of America, and most Americans don't believe corporations are people. In fact, the Supreme Court, viewing the First Amendment in the way it's viewing the First Amendment, is basically saying to the rest of us, you don't have freedom of speech, because we cannot get our message through with all of the money coming from big corporations and from rich people. Now, listen, there is one justice standing between us and having a majority on the Supreme Court. And we've got to make sure that whoever is the next Supreme Court justice pledges to overrule Citizens United against the Federal Election Commission. You know, just as a sign of how far you have led this country, can I just say, just an example of how far you've led this country, I go around this country, I talk about Citizens United, and people all over this country are apoplectic, they are enraged. I talk about Glass-Steagall, and everybody applauds. 6 months ago, do you think people would have applauded for Glass-Steagall? You see the education, the understanding that is being created in this country? Here's something else. People on the other side say, oh, corporations need more money in order to hire people. Their taxes have to be reduced. They have to have less regulations. Well, the reality is American corporations are now sitting on $2 trillion of cash they don't even know what to do with. And the ratio of corporate profits to wages is higher than it's been since before the Great Depression. Corporations are hiring not because they don't have the money. They have plenty of money. They are awash in money. They don't need tax breaks. They don't need regulatory so-called relief, which actually means fewer regulations, health, safety, the environment, Wall Street. No. What they need are customers. They need demand, and that means they need people who have money in their pockets, average working people and poor people. Time for one more question. Yes. How do we rebuild the safety net?
Support for single mothers.
Right now, at a time in American history when we have the worst economy since the Great Depression, our social safety nets are in tatters. Only 40% of people who are unemployed qualify for unemployment insurance. Only 40%. And it's not even clear after the end of this year that unemployment insurance is going to be extended for all of the people who desperately need it. Single mothers. What are we doing for single mothers who need to work? Well, we don't even have to have work out there, let alone any safety net for them any longer. What about young people with loans, college loans hanging around their necks? Unemployment among young people, even with college degrees, is about 9% right now. And they have an average of $25,000 they owe. And what about a safety net for people who have huge mortgage debt that are underwater? We bailed out the banks, folks. Why don't we bail out average working people, average people with regard to huge debts they have? In closing, let me just say this. everything is going to it's going to work out. This country, wait a minute. This country, I mean, if you look at American history, every time it looks like, wait a minute, before we get to revolution, let me just say something. Every time in the history of this country when things have got totally out of whack, and I'm talking about the 1880s and 1890s and 1920s and 1950s, every time in this country when things have got out of whack, you know what happens? People rise up. The people rise. Americans can do it. And we can do it if we are patient, if we are nonviolent, if we understand the importance of being organized and mobilized, and if we educate those who disagree with us and listen to those who disagree with us. Thank you very much.